Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. Now, shooting in the summer is by far my favourite season, especially as a wedding photographer. The problem is, with summer comes sun, and if you're photoing any time in the day, you'll end up with photos like these. Direct sun is very harsh. So in today's video, I'm going to show you a couple techniques on how you can reduce the harshness and remove some of that contrast from your photos to take your photos from this to this in Lightroom. And I'm going to start right now. Now, the problem is with shooting in the midday sun is you end up with very harsh photos with a lot of contrast. Take this photo here. The sun is right above them and you can see the shadows and the highlights. There's a very strong contrast between the brightest brights and the darkest darks. So what can we do to combat this? Well, actually, there's a few tools inside Lightroom that we can use to reduce the amount of harshness and contrast within our photo. So what I'm gonna do is immediately head over to our masking. And what we're gonna do is drop down to our linear gradient tool. And what I'm gonna do is look at the photo, work out where the sun is coming from. So in this specific example, it is the top left-hand side. And what I'm gonna do is click and drag and make a gradient that covers basically the entire image. Now, the reason we're using a linear gradient is because the gradient slowly softens from 0 to 100%, from the very top of the photo to the very bottom of the photo, making this particular effect very subtle, so it doesn't look obvious to the viewer. So what we're gonna do is just change a couple of settings. So with this, we're gonna go to our exposure here, and what I'm gonna do is just slightly drop that down, not by much, so it doesn't change the entire image, but around 0.2 to 0.4 of a stop works really nicely. As well, what I'm also gonna do is go to our temperature slider here. I'm also gonna drop that down by a smaller round. -5 to -15 works in most photos, and this image I'm going to choose around about -10. This will remove some of that very strong, warm, harsh light and balance the image a little bit more between the highlights and shadows. And then the last effect, which is the main crux of reducing that harshness, is we go into our clarity and dehaze sliders within our mask. With our dehaze here, what we do is just drop that down. We're gonna go for around about -15, and then with our clarity here, I'd recommend going for around about half that. So in this specific case, I'm gonna go for about -7. And immediately, that's made the photo look a lot less harsh. What I can do is actually show you the before and after, and it's just removed some of that very harsh light. The problem is, you might also notice that it has slightly desaturated some of those colors, and that happens when you either reduce clarity or reduce dehaze. So what we can do is go back to our main panel, go back into our basics, and what we're gonna do is go to our vibrance and saturation sliders here, and we'll go ahead and increase that back up again, around about +25 works in this specific image. Now, if you're still finding there is a lot of harshness, you can actually go to your texture, clarity, and dehaze in the basics panel and then also reduce that further. But don't reduce it too far, because you might end up making your image quite soft. So what I'm gonna do is go to my clarity here. I might reduce that down to around about -10, and then dehaze here, I might reduce that down around about -5. Now, you might end up with slightly softer blacks. So what you can do is go to the black slider here, and then just rope that down until you're happy with the overall blacks there. So for me, I might go for about -25 in the blacks. And again, if you're finding the highlights are a little bit soft, you can also increase the whites as well. But don't increase them too far, because you again add in that harshness we've just removed using that linear gradient. And hopefully this has fixed your harshness of your daylight sun with inside your photos. Here is the before, and here is the after, and make sure to write it down in the comments below if this tutorial helped you out.